The McDonald's snack wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch snack wrap. Spicy snack wrap. You broke the internet. For a snack. Snack wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Encore une fois. This is the inside story of Paris 2024. 1 year on, one more time.
The athletics is underway. This morning we'll see the first British athletes and world stars in the Stade De France. We chatted before the opening ceremony, just before you got on the boat. Mm-hmm. Got a closing ceremony to come. Yeah. You need a flag bearer. You're a three-time, you've got a gold medal.
Oh, I don't think so. There's so many athletes out here that are amazing, and it will not be me.
This is Encore Une Fois, the inside Paris story from Anything But Footy. 1 year on, one more time, we are looking back at the inside story, as we say, of Paris 2024. Some of the things that maybe we didn't get the chance to tell you about a year ago. Certainly, we were slightly busy most of the time, so we didn't really get the chance to even talk to each other much. But some of the other interesting things of how it works and maybe doesn't work in the background of an Olympic Games. And for some people, day 7, Friday, August the 2nd, is the start of the Olympics because it's when athletics starts.
Yeah, and that was going to be my role in week 2, was to be the trackside reporter at the athletics. And
what a dream job.
Yeah, it was. And you know what? Initially, when we started putting the plan together about who was going to do what, I was very much of the opinion that everyone should have the opportunity to do a bit of everything. We soon sort of revised that because actually, as we've spoken about before, once you kind of get to know the venue and the people in the venue, you're actually better off going back to those familiar places. So with you in week 1, very much rowing and canoeing was kind of like one of your key roles, your focus roles. And yeah, initially we thought, oh, well, we'll give everyone a go being the trackside reporter at the athletics. But then probably with a little bit of encouragement from you and certainly encouragement from within the TalkSport management team, they were like, you've been our go-to athletics reporter on the radio for 10 years. Whenever there's been an athletics story, you are the person that comes on and offers the analysis and the context to it. So,
well, I remember you always being called the athletics correspondent for TalkSport because they were always worried when they didn't have the rights that they couldn't call you our Olympics reporter or our Olympics editor because they weren't Olympic broadcasters. So they always called you athletics correspondent. And I was like, well, look, if that's your title, then you should do it.
Yeah. So that was the plan, was that I was going to do the athletics every evening, the trackside interviews. And our colleague Joe Ankia, who of course had been a British athlete, steeplechase athlete, had the British record. She was going to cover the morning sessions because, again, it made sense that she knew a lot of the team and she knew a lot, obviously, of the insiders in terms of the coaching staff. And obviously, I'd done a number of athletics events and things like kitting out and team announcements and stuff. So, yeah, I think we had a pretty strong sort of lineup in terms of the trackside reporting, together with Nigel Adderley as the lead commentator, working with Adam Jamili predominantly. And then we had Daley Thompson and Tessa Sanderson, 40 years on from LA, who were just going to be sort of there most evenings as well, just offering their insights daily. The plan was he was going to come and do like the last hour of the session every night, but Daly being Daly did a lot more than that, and was, fully involved with the coverage. So I think we had this fantastic lineup, and I was really looking forward to getting to the athletics. But you had the morning
Yes,
at
so
leisure.
well, funnily enough, you were the athletics correspondent, but you went to the rowing that morning because I was going to the athletics. Again, it was the last bit of my 24 hours off with my wife and son, and we had athletics tickets. So I was actually at the athletics and you were at the rowing. So I saw Josh Kerr compete in the first round of the men's 1500 meters. We knew he was going to be a big star. He was the British captain, as we said, from the athletics point of view. We saw the women's 100 meters as well. We had some hopes for Dina and Daryl at that point, but probably just being there, and we were there the first morning. The crowds it was really busy, and some of the segregation, and we queued quite a lot to get in, but it did work pretty well. There were a full, like London 2012, it was full for the morning session, and the atmosphere was one which I think, looking back on, I will always go, I'm glad I went. And the purple track stood out, the sun was shining, and apart from my son's hot dog falling onto the floor as we left the Stade De France, and I was trying to say goodbye to my wife and son, and said, I'll see you tonight, I've got to go back to work now. They dropped the hot dog on the floor. Apart from that, that was probably the low moment of the day, but it was a great start. And as you say, Joe was doing the interviews and getting some great stuff there, but you were actually at the rowing and seeing gold medals.
Yeah, I think it was quite the morning to be. I think we've talked in lots of previous episodes about people that we'd nailed on for victory. Imogen Grant and Emily Craig in the lightweight double sculls, we had nailed them on for victory. Remember, they lost out in Tokyo on a medal by probably about an inch or something. It was like 0.01 second or something ridiculous. And they'd then gone completely unbeaten between Tokyo and Paris. So, and it was also going to be the last time that we were going to have lightweight crews as well, because we've got beach rowing for LA and the lightweight categories have gone. So they will be forever the reigning Olympic champions. So Emily and Imogen, they won gold in the men's lightweight double sculls. The Irish pair of Fintan McCarthy and Paul Donovan also won golds, and had a great chat with those guys. I mean, I think they kind of got a lot of notoriety, the Irish rowers at previous games, because of their great interviews that they did. And so it was brilliant to see Emily and Imogen, and for them to have kind of achieved that destiny moment of that gold. Great to catch up with the Irish pair. And I was obviously doing the hourly updates on Talk Sport, which was something that you did mostly, but I was doing that morning. And I was in the middle of one, and Ollie Wynne-Griffith and Tom George had won a silver in the pair, were suddenly stood in front of me. So I was live on Talk Sport to 4 million people in the UK, and I just thought, well, I might as well start interviewing them here, because they literally just won a silver medal moments before, and then they were just stood next to me lakeside. So yeah, I enjoyed my morning at the rowing. It was good, and saw an Irish gold, a British gold, and a British silver.
Absolutely fantastic. And I then, after the hot dog scenario, was making my way to the Bercy Arena. Again, we were all over the shop this day. You were where I should be, I was where you should be, but we were going for the gymnastics. And I think we haven't massively talked about the gymnastics. We talked about Max Whitlock, and the teams just missing out in the men's and women's. And actually, British gymnastics has delivered medal after medal after medal in the last 4 or 5 cycles. And so we went there for the trampoline final, thinking, well, Bryony Page, she's got a bronze, she's got a silver, she's going to get a medal, and we'll be there for that. And so I as you said, went to the Bercy Arena, absolutely jam-packed again, such a good venue. I managed to get in as well, and just feel some of the atmosphere, because the mix zone, you had to walk halfway round to come back, didn't you? You had to go on the outside. It was all very complicated. But anyway, so I then went into the mix zone to wait for it and watch it effectively on the television. And she won gold. She delivered a routine which she'd spoken to us about and talked us through what she would be doing. And on TalkSport, they took that trampoline final live. I don't think I've ever known that trampolining would be on TalkSport, but it was, and it was a gold medal for Bryony Page.
And do you know what the remarkable thing was about that routine? One, I'm always surprised how surprised Bryony is when she wins medals, because she wins a lot of medals.
Yeah.
But if you ever watch the TV coverage of her, you'd look like she's never won a medal before in her life. The surprise on her face when she wins medals, but yet she wins them all the time. So that's the first thing. But we, with some of these sort of subjective sports where there's a routine. I remember we had a chat with Charlotte Worthington, BMX freestyler, and she said ahead of Tokyo, she's like, this is the run I'm going to do. If I get it wrong on the first run, I'm going to try and do it exactly the same on the second run. So she said, I'm not going to have an easier run just to make sure I get a medal. She said, this is the run, and that is what I'm going to do. That's what I've prepared. And you speak to diver Jack Law, for example. And so I remember hearing someone ask him, like, oh, did you feel like you could change your dives to try and get yourself into the medals? He's like, no, those are the 6 dives that I do. And I go into every competition and I do those 6 dives. And Kieran Riley at the BMX freestyle, people were saying, because he was in a medal position, he knew when he went into his final run, he was guaranteed a medal. So was he going to try and do something a bit different to try and get the gold? He was like, no, that's the run that I practice. But with Bryony in the trampolining, the reason to get to the point of the story is that she knew she was slightly out of position going into her final trick. And so she made that split-second decision. Bear in mind, she's got a minute or something to do all her tricks. Yep. She made that split-second decision because she knew she was in slightly the wrong position to change what she was going to do. And so although she won the gold medal, there was that tinge of disappointment that she hadn't quite done the routine at the Olympics in the final that she knew she could do, even though she did a routine that was good enough to win the gold.
And she delivered her performance, as you say, and then had to wait and waiting for other athletes. And unfortunately, one of the Chinese who was expected to potentially win the gold medal didn't complete her routine. And at that point, you knew that Bryony Page had won it. But seeing the tears that the Chinese girl was crying, and she came through the mix zone and did some interviews, which was incredible. Really, you see these athletes going through what they go through, was quite hard to see. She's she's a teenager. It's just when you've got your parent, having spent the weekend with my son or the weekday with my son, you kind of put yourself in the parent's situation.
And then, of course, Bryony came to do her interviews, having won the gold medal. And Mystic Cushing predicted the future, but at the second time of asking, because you had to interview her twice.
Well, the first time she came through the mix zone, I was told we all lined up that the BBC regional team were going to go first, and then I was going to get a minute with them, and then the world's media was going to descend. But for some reason or another, the lead media person came in and said that the 2 BBC people could do minutes with Bryony, and then I could have one question and then the world's media would descend. Now, the world's media are going to come and ask questions. They're not going to let me do 3 or 4 questions. So I literally got 30 seconds with Bryony Page before various other interviewees were asking questions. So I was pretty disappointed with that, because it had been, and it is interesting being in a mix zone for the first time, because you would think that there would be one way of doing it for each sport, but each sport is totally different. They do it how they want to do it, and the woman who was in charge of this decided that she was going to change it, and so she changed it. I vocalized my unhappiness about it to her in afterwards, and because of the relationships that we do have, I managed to speak to Tim, who is the brilliant press officer for British Gymnastics, and said, actually, could I get some more moments with Bryony? Because, this is an opportunity. It's been live on TalkSport. I've got 30 seconds with her. And he was like, yeah, look, she's just doing a drugs test, so hang around. Now, that took slightly longer than we were all predicting, to be honest. But a few hours later, having hung around in the darkened media centre of the Bercy Arena and done lots of my TalkSport reports, as Michael mentioned that I did, I managed to sit down with her. And yeah, we got to the end of the interview. We talked about Cirque du Soleil, which she was going to go and do. Will she she'd kind of ruled out going for another Olympics, but kind of said in the interview, no, actually, I might now come back again, depending on how Cirque du Soleil goes. But she'd won gold, silver, and bronze, and I was like, "You're going to carry this flag. You're going to carry the Union flag in the closing ceremony, aren't you?" And she just laughed at me and sort of said, "No, there's lots more people who are more important from my point of view." But actually, because of the number of golds that we didn't win, funnily enough, she got asked to carry the flag.
Yeah, and you don't give out lifetime achievement awards at the Olympics, but it was her third games. She had a medal of each colour. And I think, we know what Mark England, who's the Team GB chef de mission, the boss, we know that he's looking for people always that have an impact beyond sporting achievements, beyond what they do on the field of play. And one of the reasons I'm pretty sure that Bryony came back and gave you a second, longer, more considered interview is because you've been interviewing her for 10 years.
Yeah.
And in that time, she's done way more in terms of her career than just win those 3 medals. And so I think she was a standout candidate for carrying the flag. Whether I'd have thought to ask about that at the time, probably not, to be honest. But yeah, I'm not
2
surprised.
hours, it kind of helped that it was 2 hours afterwards because you had a bit of time to reflect rather than when we were talking in the last episode about Helen Glover coming off it's not the kind of question you'd ask straight after her performance to win a gold medal. But actually, a few hours later, it felt, oh, actually, yeah, looking ahead, what are you going to do for the next week and a half? Oh, you're probably going to go and carry the flag.
Yeah, we'll talk more about athletics in the next few episodes, but I just want to sort of quickly kind of just set the scene on what was to come then for me, because this Friday night, the 2nd of August, was my first night then at the Stade De France. I soon found out.
Were you nervous?
Yeah, I was. And I was. And I did an interview with might have been the mixed relay team in their heat potential. I can't remember. And something went wrong with the recording and it was pretty much unusable. So that was a bit of a
gulp moment.
A gulp moment. Yeah. Fortunately, it was just a heat, I think. And so I made the decision at that point, because I that as well as my usual recording broadcasting device, I'd back everything up on my phone and just use that as well. So I knew then that I had 2 chances at it. And in fact, nothing ever went wrong again in the whole of the athletics. So yeah, I was nervous. I remember I learned that there was various train and metro stations around the Stade de France, and I never arrived and left at the same one. There's that many. So the one I arrived at, I went home on a different one. I was like, well, this isn't where I was earlier. But anyway, so I remember going up and seeing Adam Jamili and Nigel Adderley, and then obviously, the legends Daley Thompson and Tessa Sanderson were there, part of the coverage as well. Went down to my position, track side, and realised that there were 60 trackside. There were 60 TV interview positions, starting with NBC of America, then Discovery. I think the BBC were about 7 or 8. Sarah Mulkerins was there. She was just on the corner as they turned to come back up the next level. And then there was 18. No, I was radio position 18. And then there was 19 radio positions in total. So
wow,
potentially, by the time someone had got to me, they could have been stopped by 78 different people. Now, that doesn't happen apart from maybe the men's 100 meters final where everyone wants to speak to the champion. So yeah, 78. So I was quite pleased when I realized I was position number 78, that I felt I had a decent relationship with most of the British team and would be able to encourage them to stop. Because even though they wouldn't have done 78 interviews, they will have done a fair amount. By the time they've come to me, they will have, if they've won gold medal, they'll have probably spoken to American TV. They will have spoken to Discovery across Europe. They'll have done maybe 2 or 3 BBC interviews by that point. And there will be other networks that might stop them as well. So yeah, I was there in my little position. Had Spanish radio, and we got on very well, me and Spanish radio. One side, there was a guy from New Zealand radio as well. And then I think position number 20 was Brazilian radio. I don't know what they'd done to be even further down the pecking order than us. But there we were. We got the first goal that night, which was Joshua Cheptegei of Uganda in the 10,000 meters. And I remember he did stop and record an interview because obviously our focus was to try and do mainly the British athletes. Wherever they finished, we wanted to speak to every track and field athlete from Team GB. But the first goal of the athletics, I think is something that's worth marking. So yeah, did a quick interview with Joshua Cheptegei after winning that gold medal, and yeah, I was off and running.
7 medals on day 7 for Team GB, 3 golds, 3 silvers, 1 bronze. I'm wondering whether that was the best day of the games for terms of medals from a Team GB point of view, because it felt like you've mentioned some of the medals that you were there, where there was a gold in the equestrian in the jumping team final. Ben Proud won a silver in the 50-meter free. You mentioned the rowing. Duncan Scott won a silver in the 200-meter IM as well. Jack Law and Anthony Harding won diving bronze as well. So, and it could have been even better. Beth Shriver in the BMX, she won every single race all evening. She ran every single race brilliantly and won it, and came to the final and didn't finish in the top 3. Incredible result and the power of sport. While France, Leon Marchand won his 4th gold in the swimming pool, and they beat Argentina in the football, the men's football. Thierry Henry and Matata, the Crystal Palace striker, quietly going about their business, it said in my notes. It wasn't quiet in Paris because they really wanted France to win that men's Olympic football tournament. They beat Argentina by 1-0. So day 7 of the Olympic Games, and well, it's more than a week in, isn't it? We're a week in.
And we will pick up for the middle weekend of the games on our next episode. This is Encore Une Fois, the inside Paris story from Anything But Footy. The Olympic Games, 1 year on, one more time.
Encore une fois, Paris 2024, one more time.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.